It's no big secret that pure rogues are generally seen as the weakest class to take 12 levels in when playing Baldur's Gate 3. That's not to say they're not fun, and they're certainly very useful outside of combat since they get expertise in 4 skills and eventually reliable talent at level 11, which means the lowest result for a skill check with a skill you're proficient in is 10. So I mean, what's not to love about that? Does this mean you should avoid them in honor mode or tactician mode? Absolutely not. Any and every pure class can be used to complete the game, and rogues are absolutely viable in all difficulty modes. They do have several problems as a pure class, the first of which actually makes rogues amazing for multiclassing, which is that their level progression is front loaded. What this means is that they get great abilities in the first 4 levels. At level 1 they get expertise in 2 skills, which no other class gets right away, and they get sneak attack, which before level 5 means they do quite significant amounts of damage without really trying too hard. At level 2, they can use hide, dash or disengage as a bonus action, which is really useful because that's permanent and requires no resources aside from the bonus action itself. This really lets them get around any fight, either into or out of danger, or to gain advantage by hiding, and so far things are looking pretty good for the rogue. Then level 3 comes along, and if rogues were a musician, this is what I would call its magnum opus. We get to choose the subclass, which brings huge boons for the thief and assassin, at least at level 3. Thief gives us an extra bonus action, which is permanent. This can't be getting rid of, we don't need any resource for this either, and this is so strong for multi-class builds that have good uses for bonus actions. Thieves also take half damage from falling, but you know what, I rarely get any use of that in game. Picking assassin means that when you initiate a combat by attacking someone, you will always have your action and bonus action, which is a nice feature for sure, since the first round of combat is usually the most important, especially for assassins. If you do manage to surprise a creature, then your assassin comes alive, and all hits against the surprised creature turn into critical hits. You note though that you do need to actually hit an enemy first, and to help you with that, the last feature assassins give you advantage on attacks against creatures that haven't had their first turn yet. Each individual ability assassins get are alright, but when combined, it makes them a real first round powerhouse in combat. Now, I'm not really going to mention arcane tricksters here because they tend to make more of a bad multi-class, because the amount of spells they get access to is limited and the number of spell slots even more so, since they're only a 1/3 caster, just like an Eldritch Knight. So of all the rogue subclasses, I would venture that arcane tricksters would be the strongest late game because they can easily impose disadvantage on spells they cast, which includes spells cast from scrolls and items. At level 4, rogues get a feat like every other class, and those first 4 levels are great, actually, which is why plenty of multi-class builds include 3 or 4 levels of rogue. But from here on out, things take a turn for the worse. Level 5 increases sneak attack damage from 2d6 up to 3d6, and this 1d6 increase continues every 2 levels. Now that might sound good initially, but that's an average of an extra 3.5 damage every 2 levels, or we could average that out to 1.75 damage per level. Now consider that every other martial class at level 5 gets an extra attack, and that spellcasting classes get their 3rd level spells, which start to be very powerful. This 1d6 increase in damage seems fairly lackluster. TVG! I hear you shouts. Rogues get uncanny dodge at level 5. And you know what? That is actually a really good defensive ability when we get it at level 5. And this lets you take half damage from an attack. But as we get further into the game and enemies get more and more attacks, this becomes less impactful though, because the damage reduction can only be done once per round because it uses your reaction. Level 6 gets us expertise in 2 skills that we are already proficient with. Level 7 grants us another defensive ability, evasion. Now it is useful, but it's only useful against spells that force dexterity saving throws. Do you know what's better than having the occasional damage reduction against certain spells? Dead enemy spellcasters. Level 8 is a feat as usual, and then we get to level 9, and this is possibly the worst level for thieves and assassins. Thief grants the use of invisibility once per short rest, which I mean, I guess it's okay, but Dwergar get the same ability per battle at level 5. And we also have potions and spells which do the same thing. But that's not the worst defender, because we have assassins waiting right here with their infiltration expertise that allows them to, drumroll please, cast Disguise Self once per long rest. Now, I think that's low. We're getting towards the peak of our supposed power, and all we can do is cast what should be a ritual spell available at level 1 from many other classes once per long rest. I think that's pitiful. And this is one of the problems of kind of transferring rogues from tabletop into video games. is that in 5th edition and any tabletop RPG, dungeon masters or game masters have the ability to kind of help rogues along and the much more freedom. But in a computer game, video game, we're much more limited in what we can do. Now at level 9, the Arcane Trickster gets a great feature, Magical Ambush, which is a feature that forces targets to have disadvantage on saving throws against spells that are cast while the rogue is hiding. Here on out, it starts looking up though, as level 10 gives us an extra feat that no other class would get. Level 11 gets us the aforementioned reliable talent, which means when you make an ability check with a skill you're proficient in, the lowest number you can roll is 10, which is amazing, which means you can no longer roll a 1. And secondly, the minimum for your skill checks, if you're proficient in them, is going to be, well, I guess 13 if you've got a -1 in that ability score, but you know, it's going to start to be 14, 15, and with the expertise, the minimum check you could get is like 18, 19, maybe even 20. So this is a really, really good and strong ability. And then level 12 gives us the final feat, which again every other class gets, so nothing to write home about. The problem for combat is that past level 3, there's nothing aside from sneak attack that increases damage output outside of feats. There's almost nothing that the Assassin Pure class can do that a multi-class Gloomstalker Rogue can't do basically better. With 5 levels in Gloomstalker, you'll get an extra attack just every round, plus the extra first round attack, which can really start to rack up the damage. Aside from sneak attack damage not increasing very quickly, one major letdown in Baldur's Gate 3 is that we can only use sneak attacks once per round. That's either as an action, bonus action, or reaction. Now this is different from 5th edition, where sneak attack can be used once per turn rather than once per round. So when it's the enemy's turn, and they provoke an opportunity attack, let's say, you can attack and get another sneak attack if the conditions are met, but not in Baldur's Gate 3. Part of the difference in combat prowess between rogues and the other martial classes also is that there are many magic items that can massively increase the damage of each attack. Let's watch this. So I can get a sneak attack now, but in the next round I don't think I'm going to be able to. So yeah, there's lots of magic items that can massively increase the damage of each attack, which pure rogues only ever get 1 of per turn. I mean, I guess you could use your bonus actions as a thief, but the martial classes, other martial classes automatically get 2 attacks per action, plus any bonus action attack they might be able to use. So if any other martial class dual wields hand crossbows, they can get up 3 attacks in that turn as well. Aside from the Arcane Tricksters, rogues do not have any resources that can run out, so they can keep going no matter what. Before I carry on, let's have a quick look at this. So there I didn't get a chance of a sneak attack because I already used it in the previous round, which is different to 5th edition. Anyway, back to what I was talking about with resources. So yeah, rogues don't have any resources, which is, you know, you might think is great and kind of is. It means if battles go on for a long time, then they're not going to run out of resources. They can keep doing what they can do. This is kind of a double-edged sword because the reason they don't have any resources is because lots of their abilities aren't really worthy or strong enough to have resources associated with them. So why would you play a rogue? A pure rogue? Because so far I've been mostly pointing out flaws in pure rogues, but I do want to reiterate that playing a rogue doesn't mean you will lose the game or that they should be avoided at all costs. Having an extra feat allows for greater build variety and complexity, and they are superb at skill checks, especially once they get to level 11. This means they can be very useful outside of combat, and with the right pick of a background, a rogue with expertise can easily be your party face without the need for a lot of charisma. Their defensive abilities are resourceless, so they can be a little bit tankier than you might first think. One good thing for all classes, not just rogues, is that there are plenty of powerful magical items in the game, so all is not lost. Although this is supposed to be the more positive section of the video, I have to express my disappointment in the lack of items specifically for rogues, and that the pair of gloves, the Stalker gloves, that improve the damage of sneak attack do so by a miserly 1d4. I would suggest that rogues benefit from having medium armor proficiency, as this opens up more options for them, including the sets of medium armors that allow for the full dexterity bonus to be included in the armor class calculation. In fact, I will now show you an example of a build that utilizes this, with Lae'Zel being our model because she gets medium armor proficiency from being a Githyanki. I will try and do this as quickly as possible, focusing on the character creation a lot and then the feats. So at character creation, I would say the most important thing is to put your dexterity at 17. We want to max out dexterity. Then have a constitution that you're comfortable with. I've gone for a 14, so I can have 14 in wisdom. Having a decent wisdom is good for you because there are a few skill checks associated with it. perception and survival, probably being the most important, and also gives you defense against control spells. But if you want to, you could like dump charisma, maybe dump strength, so you can have a higher constitution to allow you to survive more, have a higher number of hit points. But I'm going to go with my abilities like this. Then for expertise, personally, I like fitting into this whole I'm a rogue, I'm an expert at opening locks and disarming traps. So I would pick expertise for sleight of hand. And I want to point out at level 1, we get a +7 to sleight of hand and potentially any skill that you want. There's no other class that can be that strong in a skill from the beginning, right from the outset. The other expertise, just do what's maybe lacking in your party, what you prefer. Maybe you like having a high perception, let's say. Now do note that Githyanki, of which Lae'Zel is one, do have the ability to gain proficiency in all skills of a single ability check until long rest. Perhaps you want to leave one set of skills alone that are associated with a single ability score. Lae'Zel already has proficiency in intimidation from having the soldier background, but otherwise I'm going to leave the charisma skills without any proficiency in. The next choice we have to make is a subclass. I'm going to go with Thief for the extra bonus action, and we're going to see if we can utilize that well. At level 4 we get our first feat. This is going to go with Weapon Master, so we can even out that dexterity up to 18. And then we're going to pick proficiencies in glaive is so important. And then since, you know, this is a build for the whole game perhaps, we want to pick other weapons that use dexterity as the attack and damage modifier. So ranged weapons, heavy crossbow and longbow, and maybe the last finesse weapon being scimitar. There's no choice to make it level 5. Level 6, pick expertise in whichever proficiencies you want. At level 8, we need to pick another feat or ability improvement. I'm just going to put dexterity up to 20. At level 10, you could pick Great Weapon Master. One reason for this is that there are a few finesse two-handed weapons or versatile weapons in the game, such as Phalar Aluve, which will benefit from Great Weapon Master. And the last feat at level 12 is going to be Polearm Master, because we're going to be wielding, well, a polearm. This whole build revolves around having this weapon, the Dancing Breeze, which is available in Rivington, and it's the only finesse kind of great weapon, two-handed weapon, and it has extra reach, and quite nicely it's got whirlwind attack, so once per short rest you can attack all nearby foes, which is kind of cool. Do note though, you can only get sneak attack on a single enemy, not all of them, which is a bit sad. As for her armor, I'm taking the best medium armor I can that allows her to use the full dexterity modifier. This is the one we can get in Act 3, which really boosts her armor class, a base armor class of 17, plus 5 from her dexterity, and plus 1 from the cloak of protection. Gloves of Belligerent Skies here work in tandem with the Speedy Light feat. This helps us give out reverberation, I'll show this later. The most important piece of jewelry is this here, the Risky Ring. This allows any rogue to have a sneak attack no matter where the allies are. I know you can get sneak attack by having your ally within 5 feet of an enemy. Sometimes it's just not possible. Or an enemy has died already and there's no choice and you want to be able to get sneak attack. The Risky Ring means you can do it every single attack. The other items I would say are pretty much optional, but I've chosen the Caustic Band just to give that extra little bit of damage to every attack. Saravox Helmet to increase the chances of a critical hit, plus giving a Githyanki Dark Vision, because Lae'Zel doesn't have that as a Githyanki. We do also have another couple of bonuses, but that's not really why I took the helmet. And I've got this necklace here, just that once per long rest, if I get a critical hit, which is quite likely, we can paralyze an enemy. Now I have chosen 2 hand crossbows, kind of the 2 best magical ones I would say. This does bring up the idea that perhaps due to what instead I could have just picked Sharpshooter and just attacked 3 times with my hand crossbows, adding plus 10 damage. But I don't want to show that here because I think I've seen that ad nauseum on Reddit, on YouTube. I want to show something that isn't as well advertised, I would say. Something just a tiny bit different. Now the last thing we can do to really buff up our damage, something a little bit cheesy, a little bit cheeky, is if we equip the Drake Throat Glaive, we can cast Elemental Weapon onto any weapon that's on the floor. I'm going to pick Thunder because that helps with the gloves that we're wearing. And so now when I equip the weapon, first of all, it's a +1, which is great. And it does an extra 1d4 thunder damage. The elemental weapon doesn't require concentration. It's this concentration list, it's there, permanent buff until long rest. you can do that with any weapon you want. I've also already had her take an elixir of viciousness to decrease the number needed for a critical hit even further. So I'm going to go back and start the fight I was previously doing, just to show you off the aspects of this build that make it, I think, an enjoyable build. So, first use, it's not even Lae'Zel's turn yet. Polar Master. Great, we can attack. We've got a critical hit. Perfect, kind of what I want to show off. And then we can sneak attack. And we've just done 51 plus 34 plus a tiny bit more damage there. So it's 93 damage. But, as I've already said, this does mean I can't use sneak attack on the second. Yeah, you can't get sneak attack twice in one round. Now, I got a critical hit, which means from Great Weapon Master, I can hit again. We're going to get rid of that Steel Watcher. Good stuff. That's a slightly annoying sound. Also, as Polar Master, it's kind of sad. We can have a bonus action attack. What's sad about it is, hopefully this hits, it doesn't gain the benefits of Great Weapon Master or the Drake Throat Glaive. We also can't get sneak attack off of it, I don't think. But it does use our second bonus action while still having a two-handed weapon. So here I can use the Whirlwind attack. I can hit 3 enemies in one go. Now, we will get the choice to sneak attack. Now be careful here because you can actually drag all of these out and you can choose who to sneak attack, but it can only be one of them. So I've got Gauntlet Thunder, who's on 3 hit points. That would kill them. Fist Miller, who's on 32, is a critical hit. I'm going to go with Fist Miller, I think. There we are. Did lots of damage. And I can still add the paralyzing critical to Gauntlet Thunder. I think it's a bit of a waste considering they've got 3 hit points. So I will not use it. And because I got a critical hit and I killed someone, I can now attack with Great Weapon Master. Gauntlet Thunder's a bit weird. In my games, she never appears at the moment. So when I attack, it goes to somewhere random and then comes back. Something I haven't shown yet because I've been getting carried away. Although normally I would use Great Weapon Master to attack here. I've got the Speedy Light feat, so if I dash, we get these lightning charges. Now I've already got thunder damage working with the Gloves of Belligerent Skies, but lightning charges also add lightning damage to our attacks and give us a +1 bonus to hit. So I'm going to see if I can bring in a couple more enemies into the battle. That's probably a bit over the top. So what I'm going to do here is dash again to get the extra lightning charges. And so I can use Brace Melee. Let's go for this. Again, another critical hit. This is probably where Paralyzing Critical would be the best. So that next turn, and in fact now, I can even get another critical hit in. There we are, gone. That's only once per long rest. Probably after this combat, unless I take a long rest immediately, I'd probably swap out this necklace for whatever I feel like. So we've got another turn, nothing new to show off now anymore, really. Keep getting critical hits. The advantage here is really, really helping. And the fact I'm critting on an 18 or higher now. This is why we want the Risky Ring. This is why we want the Elixir of Viciousness. You know, dealing 109 damage in one turn. Really, really not that bad. Let's see if we can do this. Right, perfect. She's held. This is perfect for any martial. Anyone in melee. Taking them down. So in conclusion, are pure rogues going to do the most damage in combat? You know what? That's unlikely. But does this mean you should avoid them? Absolutely not. Remember that although combat is a large part of the game, it is far away from being the only thing in the game, and each subclass is useful in combat in their own way. So let's just try and show off reliable talent. Yeah, why not? Let's have guidance. I'm going to pass this. My minimum is a 10. No matter what, I'm going to pass. There's 13. It was never going to be below 10. Lastly, I want to reiterate that rogues are amazing as part of multi-class builds because they are so front-loaded, and the abilities they get at these early levels do not require resources. If we were to rank rogues in terms of their multi-classing, they would be towards the very top because there are so many other classes that can benefit from 3 or 4 levels in rogue. Thank you very much for watching and for making it this far. Do let me know your thoughts on rogues. Have I been a bit too harsh? Are they your favorite class perhaps? And again, if you find that a class fun, that should probably be the primary reason you play it, in my opinion. Thank you to all the members of my channel, and hopefully I will catch you in the next one.